All right, so let's go ahead and start this workshop. So yeah, for today's workshop, we're gonna go over going from nothing into learning any type of stab. We'll be learning 3 basic stab freezes and then going into some concepts as far as like stab dynamics goes. And then we'll be going into more advanced stuff like side chair, air chair, Hong 10 freeze, and then transitions. I don't think I have Hong 10 freeze in here, but I'll be learning that one after air chair. So yeah, so if you guys already are plugged into the Google Docs, I'm gonna post the link right now. Posting it again. So yeah, that's the link for the Google Docs. If you're not plugged in yet, go ahead, check it out. And this is exactly what I'll be going over. So without any time to waste, we'll be doing from 0 to Handglide. So if you have no experience with stabs, and if you already know how to stab, maybe there's something here that you didn't figure out, or if you're teaching people how to stab that you may not be covering. The first one is going to be, if you have no experience with stab, this is going to be called a Handglide. So what you're going to do is take your elbow and put it in your belly button or in your gut like this. Your knees are going to be on the ground, and you're just going to lean forward like this. Place that hand on the ground, and then your other hand is just going to be somewhat in front of you like this. Okay? So this is the basic position that you're going to be in. You could also start from plank. Put your knees down, put your elbow in your gut, and then rest on that. And then if you're not used to this, you can just keep your knees on the ground like this. All right? And then from here, lean forward a little bit. If you want, you can put your head on the ground, but you want to try and lift those legs up. All right? And let's see if I missed anything. So you can have both hands down. If you want, you can put your head on the ground, but lean forward until those knees lift off the ground. And if you notice they're not lifting off the ground like this, it's because my back is hunched over like this. If I'm hunched over, the easy way to fix it is to straighten it out. So if you're hunched over, you want to straighten it out. From here, straighten it out. From here, straighten it out. So that's going to be the first big thing as far as stabs go. That's going to be called the Handglide. I think it has a bunch of different names. I usually just refer to it as a basic stab. So this stab freeze right here, knees on the ground, you can put your head on the ground, both hands, and if you want, flex that back, straighten it out, and you should have a good grasp on picking up those legs. A good way to start is also to have your heels pulled in towards your butt. So when you do it like this, and you flex your back up, your feet might go on the ground because you're not really crunching in your legs. So really crunch those legs in, straighten your back. That's gonna be the Handglide. All right, so yeah, that's gonna be the very, very first thing, Handglide. Any questions on that? So both hands down, you can start in plank or with your knees on the ground. Take your stab arm, put it in your elbow, or your elbow in your gut. Bring those heels towards your butt, straighten out that back. And then if you want, try and hold your fingertips and lift them off until you can hold a basic stab. You can do this two-hand as long as you're comfortable, and this is going to open up a lot of doors for you as far as starting windmill, and crickets, jackhammers, and even halos. So this is going to be like the very first base layer that you should learn, and I recommend everyone learning. So that's Handglide really quickly. And then baby freeze, the next one. So I guess this one, there's a couple variations on it. I'm going to teach the one that I learned. It's going to be based off the crow. It's basically going to be a crow with a stab. A lot of people will teach it the other way around like this, like a crab baby freeze. Doesn't really matter. Principle is still the same. So what I like to do is get on one knee like this. The leg that's up, that's going to be corresponding to my stab arm. So if I'm stabbing my right arm, my right leg is going to be up. So I'm starting kneeling like this. All right. And then with my other arm, my free arm, I'm going to cross over my knee. So I'm going to reach across to my opposite knee and then place my knee right above my elbow. So not like not on my elbow, but on my tricep really. So I'm gonna place it like further up on my arm. And this is gonna set me up for a baby freeze. As you do this baby freeze, make sure your fingers are pointing straight out, not upwards, not downwards, straight out, side to side. So this is gonna be the position you're in. From your knee, your arms are like this. You're gonna place your arms on the ground. One of your feet might come up, no, not a problem. So you're here in this position, both my feet are on the ground right now. And then what I'm gonna do is lean over, and this leg that's stabbing onto my arm, I'm gonna lift that one up first. My other leg is on the ground. I'm gonna lean over until my head is on the ground. All right, so this is a baby freeze. You're gonna have 3 points of contact. You're gonna have your stab arm, and then your free arm, which is this one right here. And then your head is gonna be on the ground. So 1, 2, and then 3. So you're gonna make a little triangle between your arms and your head, just like we do with head freeze when we do our stream. So again, baby freeze, the same. You're gonna get on one knee. That knee is gonna correspond to the arm you're stabbing with. And then you're gonna reach over and cross. Both fingers pointing outwards, side to side. Place those hands down, lean until your head's on the ground, all right? And also, as you do this, keep in mind, you wanna keep your neck straight. So if my neck is straight with my body like this, I wanna maintain this. I don't wanna curve my head any which way. So when I do a baby freeze, it's still gonna be straight. I don't want it to be like this or like this, turning my head, just keep it straight. It should feel like if you're wearing a headband or a head, if you're wearing a headband or a hat, the edge of the headband or the edge of the hat, like right here, that's where you're gonna be placing your head. So yeah, baby freeze, it's gonna help you with a lot of transitions, especially with stack combos and also finishing up power. So this is just one variation. If you want, you can switch your legs that are stabbed, and this is a crab based baby freeze. So a lot of different ways to do a baby freeze. A lot of people have different naming conventions, but basic thing is have your head down, both your arms, and then you have your stab arm, and then with your free arm, there's some leg on there, either this one or this one, doesn't really matter. So next one is gonna be chair freeze. Chair freeze is gonna look like this, as we do in our stream. So this is usually gonna be a finisher for power or for stacks, or you can also just do it from sweeps into footwork, into chair, doesn't really matter. But the reason why this technique is important is because when you wanna learn side chair, air chair, more advanced techniques, you're gonna move the stab from your hang glide to baby freeze to chair. And we're gonna go over that later, but this is a really important basic as far as stab freezes. With chair freeze, you're gonna start in a baby freeze or a hang glide. It doesn't really matter, but the idea is that you're gonna be shifting your stab from here all the way out as far back as you can. You ideally want to be stabbing in your back right here. So if this is hang glide, this is baby freeze, this will be chair freeze. So you want to really open out that chest. So here's what it's going to look like. We'll start it from hang glide, and then I'll show it from baby afterwards. So from hang glide, you're here, you're going to turn your hips outward, and then your legs can be on the floor, your head can also be on the floor. With your free arm, you can have it in front of you or on top, wherever, it doesn't matter. So that's gonna be from hang glide, baby freeze. You're pretty much already halfway there. The thing is, when you're here, crossed, you're gonna pick up that leg. So this leg right here, pick it up off into chair freeze. And a lot of people are gonna have trouble at first getting their feet to touch the ground. If that's the case, turn it in a little bit. So notice my stab is turned in a little bit. Once you get used to it, then you can start turning your stab more towards your back as you have your feet on the ground still. So it's just a matter of flexibility. But yeah, I would recommend starting in a baby freeze because your legs are already in position. And then also just a couple things to note is not only is your stab changing to the back, but another way to think about it is if I'm in a hang glide, my chest is facing towards the ground. If I'm in a baby freeze, my chest is, I guess, still a little bit facing towards the ground or a little bit outward. And then with chair, my chest is now facing upward and my shoulder is completely open. So everything here is open when it comes to chair freeze. Whew. Does that make sense for anyone? Any questions? So those are going to be the 3 basic freezes as far as stab goes. The most basic fundamentals. So I think this workshop is going to be relatively shorter compared to the other ones. So go ahead, give those a try. Hang glide, baby freeze, chair freeze, whichever one. Let me know which one you struggle with the most. I was doing chair freeze in my stream on my opposite arm. And man, it took me a while till I get used to opening up my chest again, because I can do it on my regular arm, but when I do it on my opposite, I'm just like not as flexible here. So also, when you do chair freeze, you're gonna feel a strain like right on this a line between your shoulder and your chest. The connecting part, like if you're wearing a t-shirt and there's like a line, like the seam between like the sleeve and then the body of the shirt, that's gonna be like the muscle that's stretching. So this right here, there's gonna be a line right here. You're gonna feel that stretch. And you're especially gonna feel it when you start air chairing. Yeah, so it's just a matter of stretching. I would say for chair freeze, if that's what you guys are struggling with a lot more, is you don't have to worry about getting your stab all the way to the back. So like when I was learning my opposite, and I'll just do it on my regular side, but when I was learning, I could open it out, but my feet couldn't touch the ground because I wasn't as flexible. But turn it in a little bit and my feet can touch the ground. And then once I get used to this and I'm more comfortable, I can turn out and then open out that chest, stretch that shoulder. So it's just a matter of really stretching and making sure that your chest is open and you're engaging that shoulder. And as far as like specific stretches go, I would recommend what we went over once in my stream, which is this stretch right here. And basically my arm is at a 90-degree angle with my body. So if my body is facing straight along this way, my arm is out pointing towards you guys. And then really just turning my hips first and then turning my chest to face upward. And that's gonna stretch out my shoulder. But another way to do it is just doing a chair freeze, because when I was learning, I literally just practiced doing the chair freeze, just trying to get my legs to the ground, and that's what really got me the most flexibility while learning the move. So, yes, go ahead, give a couple of these a shot. If these are easy for you, try it learning on your opposite side, because it's gonna come in handy, especially when you want to use more dynamics. Basically, from here to the end of the workshop, we're going to be working on more advanced techniques. So if you struggle with doing hang glide, baby freeze, chair freeze, go ahead and just reroute you up until this point, or just work on those until you get an idea of how it feels. And then once you're comfortable, then you can start applying it to the more advanced concepts like side chair, air chair, Hong 10 freeze, and then like applying it into your power. Really, those are the basics, super basics. And I guess from here, I'll go into more of the conceptual stuff before I get into the more advanced stuff, just because we have the basics and it's a lot easier to work with for understanding wise. So if you look in the notes, it says there's 3 degrees of stabbing, and it's exactly what we went over. There's hang glide, there's baby freeze, and there's chair freeze. And this kind of applies to every freeze. If you've taken my freeze workshop before, I go over this, but very generally. Specifically for stab, you're going to be stabbing in hang glide completely closed. Your shoulder is closed into your chest. If you do side chair or like baby freeze, shoulder's somewhat open, but your chest isn't fully out. And then for chair or air chair or Hong 10, you're going to try to stab all the way in the back. Your chest is completely open. So those are the 3 degrees of stab. And this also applies to any freeze, but since we're doing a stab workshop, we're we're just going to be applying it to stabs. So Handglide is completely closed, baby freeze side chair is somewhat open, and then chair or air chair or Hong 10 freeze is where you're completely open. And then also, once we get into these more advanced freezes, I want to emphasize there are 2 ways to do each of these freezes, like side chair, air chair, Hong 10, all those freezes. You can either hold them, which means like balancing them, like balancing it like this, and then sticking it with your legs brought all the way up. So notice when I was holding it, I can hold it for a relatively long time or a longer time than when I can stick it. But as I'm holding it, my flexibility, my pike's not as deep, and when you're doing it from, when you're trying to stick it, you get a lot deeper of a pike or a lot deeper in the freeze, but you can't hold it as long as if you're trying to balance it. So I'll show you, like, if I'm here, I can hold it, but my flexibility is not as good, but I can hold it longer. But if I want to stick it, I pull it up, but I can only stick it for a short amount of time. So both of these, holding and sticking, balancing, and like really bringing those legs in, serve 2 different types of purposes when you're doing any type of freeze. So this concept applies to any freeze. It applies to like handstand, Nike, pikes, elbow freeze, whatever you want to do. It serves a bunch of different purposes, and since we're just doing chair freeze and stabs, we'll just be going over applying it to that today. But basically, the thing is, if you want to balance it, there's going to be a certain technique for it, and if you want to stick it, there's going to be another technique for it. And balancing it is going to be good if you're trying to stack. So if I have a stab in between my combo, I'm not going to really stick it. But if it's at the end of my combo, then I'm really going to stick it. And you'll see a lot of professional b-boys or a lot of really good b-boys, they'll really stick those freezes at the end. They'll do a round, really stick that air chair. They may hold it for a while, but sometimes they may not hold it for that long. But they also should have the ability to balance it. So working on both of those is really going to improve your overall ability to do freezes and apply it into whatever you're doing. So enough about that. Let's get into the first move, which is going to be side chair. So I would say if you have side chair already, do it on your opposite side. And if you kind of have it on your good side, or if you're not familiar with it at all, then go ahead, try it on your strong side. So with side chair, it's going to be pretty much, oh my gosh, it's not getting focused. So side chair, it's going to be derived from the baby freeze. So your stab is going to be right on your sides. It's not going to be in the back, and it's not going to be in the front. It's going to be right in the middle. You're going to, as soon as you start lifting off, it's going to be a baby freeze, but you're going to lift off this leg right here. You're going to lift it off and unstab it. You're going to start like this. So you notice I still have my 3 points of contact. I have both my hands on the ground and my head on the ground. All I'm doing is lifting up to where my legs are unstabbed, and the only thing that's stabbed right now is my hip. And it's going to be really uncomfortable at first because it's going to feel like you're stabbing your hip bone, and like your elbow is just like kind of grinding in on your hip bone. You're going to get used to it, and the reason why it's kind of like falling in there or like feeling really uncomfortable or falling on the bone is because your body is kind of like, if I'm like this, my body's kind of curving over and like all my weight's sinking over my arm. The more you get used to it, the more you'll be able to really flex the arm and push back up to where you're not really stabbing straight on your hip. But the reason why is because when I stab, my whole body is kind of just sinking into it right now if you're not used to it. And then once you get used to it, you can start pushing back, straightening out that body like we did in Handglide, and you won't really be actually resting on your hip anymore. So what I recommend is starting from baby freeze and then lifting up that leg that's crossed over, bring it back up, and then just get used to being in this stab right here with 2 hands and your head on the ground. And then just get familiar with the feeling of that elbow really driving into your hip. And then once you feel that, try and lift up a little bit. Try and push, keep your body straight. And then let's see. So yeah, first thing would be working on it as an unstabbed baby or uncrowed baby freeze. So removing this knee from your elbow. And then for now, do whatever you want with your legs, because we'll get to that in a bit. But once you get the stab more comfortable, so once you get this hip or this elbow not to drive so much into your hip, and it's gonna feel like a pinch at first, honestly. I don't really know how to describe it like to people who don't know how it feels like, but if you try it and you're not used to it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's gonna feel like it's like pinching your hip, and it's gonna feel real uncomfortable. But once your stab is more comfortable, so you're in baby freeze, you lift off that leg, and you're now comfortable with your hips, try lifting that head off the ground. All right, and if your feet touch the ground a little bit, perfectly fine. Whew. Hey, J-Rock got that opposite. Let's go. Wanted chips is not really like an unstabbing, which we'll get to in air chair. But for side chair, it's more just like straightening your body so all your weight's not like concentrated on your hip falling onto your elbow and then like pinching, like I don't know what it is, like your skin pinching or something like that. It's just really uncomfortable. But you kind of want to just change the distribution of weight to where it's not all like centered on this point right here. And you'll see what I mean as you get used to it. But yeah, the next thing would be to lift the head off the ground. So you're in baby freeze. First, lift off the leg, lift off the head. And if you want to just try it with your feet on the ground, like a chair freeze, but with your head off the ground, you can try doing that. But I recommend bringing those legs in and just try holding this. So that's going to be a side chair, really. That's really all a side chair is. And then there's one-handed side chair, which we'll get to in a little bit. But just practice balancing that with two hands only. And lifting your head off the ground. Your leg position, I like to do it either scrunched legs or in Nike position. So I'm here, my legs are either crunched or Nike. And that's usually what you'll see most people that do side chairs. They'll either have their legs in those positions. And you can do a pike Nike, a flat Nike, so you can do like pike Nike, or you can do open Nike, or you can crunch your legs in. Doesn't really matter. Whatever you feel is more comfortable for you. But the main thing about side chair is unstab that arm, or unstab that leg from that arm, from the baby freeze, and then also lift your head off the ground. Those are the two main things. Now, you're at this point right here with two hands on the ground, and you don't know where to go. Now, it's about shifting all your weight over back into the stabbing arm. And just like we did with Air Baby in the Air Baby workshop, you want to lift to where your fingers, or your free hand, is only on its fingertips. And then just like the Air Baby, you want to lift off each finger until you're holding it like this. So, you're doing side chair, whatever leg position for now. And if you want to get a one hand, lift off each finger until you're at one finger. And don't try to open your arm out or you're going to fall. So just try and, once you're at one, just lift it off slowly. And just try holding this. If you lose your balance, just catch it again. And then lift off. So side chair is going to be stabbing right on the side. And it's going to be hard to differentiate sometimes, like, oh, what's a side chair? What's an air chair? If you want my opinion, doesn't really matter. If you're looking at footage, you're like, oh, he did an air chair, and people are like, oh, no, it's a side chair. To me, doesn't really matter. They killed it, they killed it. But as far as like integrating it with your stacks and freezes, maybe you don't want to go to air chair, stab all the way in the back. Maybe stabbing on the side is more comfortable for you. So that's kind of the gist of side chair. So unstabbed position, I will get to in air chair, but yes, you do want to flex both your tricep and your lat, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But with side chair, maybe, yeah, actually let's go over it with side chair. It is kind of applicable for side chair, but it's not as useful as it is with Airchair. So basically, in order to unstab, so like let's say you're in side chair, your body's sinking in like this, but you got it straightened out. Now that you're not stabbing on your hip, you're kind of just using mostly your tricep. That's kind of where all your weight's going. And in side chair, it's going to be on your side. Air chair is going to be in the back. Both, once you get comfortable with it, it's going to kind of be like synonymous. But what you want to do to unstab is really flex that tricep. So this right here, this underside, you want to flex it. At the same time, your lat, like right here, like it's almost on your back. Like this whole area, this whole section is going to flex as well. Both of those are going to flex and kind of like create space for you. So if you're here and you flex your tricep and your lat, it's going to create a space right here. So this is why it's an unstabbed air chair, because what's actually stabbing is your tricep and your lat right here. Your lat and your tricep are what's holding you. So this is like unstabbed air chair. It looks unstabbed because your elbow is not stabbing, but really the stab is just shifting from your elbow, and it's the pivot point is shifting from your elbow to your tricep and your lat. So hey, we got an F in the chat. Wanted chips. So you can apply this to side chair, but really it's most applicable for air chair, especially when you're transitioning or if you want to just stick to air chair. I'll go over a few more things with side chair and then we'll move on to air chair. So yeah, side chair, pretty much from baby freeze, lift off the leg, lift off the head, and then try balancing on just your arms, fingertips, let go one by one. Practice shifting your weight to your stab arm, and then try slowly lifting off. Honestly, to do an unstabbed air chair, you don't need a really like huge lat or anything. All you need to do is just flex it. Really, it's just more the technique that you're flexing your tricep, flexing your lat, and unhinging that stab from the elbow. And another way you can do this is just by leaning more towards your head. So once you're in this position, you can try to do unstabbed. You can't really see it because my shirt is like covering my elbow. But to do unstabbed, you can do it with two hands if you want. So for those of you who can side chair already, go ahead and do a side chair, lift your head off the ground. Oh, let me get a better angle. Yeah. So do a side chair with both hands on the ground. You can have flat hand, fingertips, doesn't matter. And try flexing that tricep. And you're going to feel everything kind of just unhinge, kind of like this. So go ahead and give that a shot. Let me know in your side chair what point you're at. If you have your head on the ground, if you lifted your head off the ground, if you are on your fingertips, if you can do unstabbed, let me know. So unstabbing is going to be really hard at first, so I wouldn't expect to get it on the first try. It's just a matter of comfortability. So it's really like if you're not getting it and it's like, oh, it's not really because your lat is like, oh, I'm not getting it. It's because I need bigger lats or a bigger tricep. That's not the case actually. It's just more like comfortability with the stab freeze. All right. So now let's go to the legs, especially with Nike or scrunch legs. Now, just like we went over in the handstand workshop when we did Nike freeze or pike, what you want to do, especially for side chair and air chair, is if you're Nikeing or scrunch legs, that leg that you're, I guess that's opposite to the arm that you're stabbing with. So if I'm stabbing my right arm, my left arm, or my left leg, I'm really going to try and pull it in. So if I'm in a Nike freeze, really just try and pull that into your shoulder. Really try to get that knee to your ear like this. So you can have your crunch leg or your pumping leg like in or out. Regardless, really pull that knee towards your ear, your shoulder, whatever. Same thing with scrunch legs. Have it in, but this leg needs to be pulled in as much as you can. And that goes for both side chair and air chair. So, like for example, I mean, you can still do it like this, side chair with a really wide angle like this. But if I would suggest practice working on that flexibility, Try to bring it in as much as you can. Same thing with straightened. And you'll notice here, I'm teaching the balanced way. So for side chair, I recommend working on the balance first. Once you get a handle on balancing it, and then working on that flexibility of pulling your leg in, whether it's Nike or crunch legs, just really pulling the opposite leg towards you, then you can focus on bringing it all in and sticking it. So for side chair, for example, I'm doing the balance right here. I'm balancing it, holding this, and then if I want to stick it, now that I can balance it, now I want to work on sticking it because I have the balance. And that's kind of more like an air chair kind of. Doesn't really matter. Like I said, they're kind of synonymous to me. But I will be going over the air chair specifically next. But as far as side chair goes and balance versus sticking it, a lot of people will just try to stick their side chair, their air chair, just go into it like just try to kick into it. I highly recommend working on the hold first, working on balancing it, and then working on sticking it. Because if you can balance it, you can stick it to some degree, even though it's not like as flexible as you want it, but the potential to stick it is there. But if you can stick it and you can't balance it or can't hold it, then you kind of just have to learn the hold all over again. So I think it's more effective in the learning process to get that hold first and then work on the flexibility rather than trying to get a really deep Nike or Pike or whatever and then have to relearn the holding position just because you're not as used to it. So that's my spiel about balanced versus sticking it. But yeah, just keep in mind your hip at first is really going to hurt. It's going to feel like a pinching, but once you get more used to it, then you can start like adjusting your body to where it's maybe not stabbing directly on your hip like so low. You can stab a little bit higher. And that's like another thing. Like a lot of times we'll baby freeze and everything's crunched in like this, and your stab is actually like really low, closer to your hip or your leg. But once you get used to it, you can start, as you straighten out your back. The only reason I'm like this is because my back is curved in like this. But once I straighten out that back and do a regular side chair, my elbow comes up and lifts off from like resting on like the middle of that hip bone as I was doing in baby freeze. I'll show you guys what I mean. So baby freeze to side chair, notice my back is going to go from crunched. I don't know what's a good angle for this. It's going to go from crunched like this, and as I open up to straight, watch the position of my stab from here, and as I straighten out my back, it picks up from my hip to higher up. So you're still going to be like a little bit on your hips, but it's going to be more on the upper side of your hip than like directly on it. So baby freeze, oh, you can't even see it. What's a good angle here? Baby freeze, everything is closed in. I'm pretty much stabbing on my hips. As I open out, I'm lifting away from my hips right here. So I moved a couple inches. That's also another thing to think about. So when you're first starting, lifting from that baby freeze, going into side chair, as you extend out and straighten out your back, that's going to be one of the ways you can avoid really like pinching that center hip part. Yeah, it's going to be hard, especially when you're going from like essentially 2 points of stabbing to one. It's going to be really difficult to adjust where your elbow is going to go, but it's just a matter of practice. I would practice especially holding it with your head on the ground. So from baby freeze like this, keep your head on the ground and just slowly lift that leg away and just try holding this. So I would say whenever you're learning these freezes or any freezes, be able to hold it first with two hands and then worry about sticking it. So you'll see a lot of people do like with air chair photos where they're just like everything is really like tucked in like really deep and all that stuff. But holding it is a whole different thing. If you can hold it, you're more likely better off to stick it in the long run. So with that being said, let's move on to Airchair. So the Airchair notes are really similar to side chair, but the only difference is instead of stabbing in from your baby freeze on the side, you're going to be stabbing from the chair freeze in your back. So there's a couple ways to do this. I guess the best way to explain it would be just to show you the first way, which would be doing it from chair. So starting off in chair like this, and then opening out that chest, really extending that shoulder right here. And then just try, you can have both legs down, it doesn't really matter. Just try picking up your head off the ground. You can keep your feet on the ground as well as your stab hand. Try picking up like this and just try holding this chair freeze with your head lifted off the ground. So that's like the first way to do it. So I'm going from my head, this side, and picking up. And it's going to be really hard at first. So if you want to put your other hand on the ground, you're more than welcome to do that. So go and chair freeze like this and then pick up. From here, pick up. Once you're used to it, then you can try lifting up your head off the ground without your arm. It's going to be really, really difficult. I can't even do it on my opposite arm. So maybe I should work on that. But that's going to be the first way to get into it. The second way, so the first way is lifting the head up. Now the second way would be putting the head down. So exact same thing. You're going to be in, you're going to try to get into chair freeze, but you can do it from your knees or from squatting position like this. And then instead of lifting your head up from chair, you're going to take your head, try to put it down like this. So lifting up, putting it down. And remember, you want to be stabbing in your back. Lifting up, putting down. And what this is doing is giving you that entire range of motion, for at least for your head, the entire range of motion for what you're going to be doing for air chair. Because for air chair, you're really going to be lifting up your head. So not only are your legs going to be coming towards you, your head is also going to be going towards your legs. So that's why this drill is so important, so that way you have a full range of motion with your head pulling up and down. Go ahead, actually, since we have some time, go ahead and try that drill. Do it with two hands. There's really no problem with it. Just make sure your stab is in the back. If you have your hand out in a chair freeze like this, your chest can open out more. But if you're already stabbed in the back, put your hand down, no worries. Your chest will be a little bit closed, but the exercise is more important. So that's going to be the very, very first thing, just lifting the head back and forth. Go ahead, give that a shot. So if you have chair freeze down, go ahead, give it a shot. Let me know how you did. Yeah, so really, if you have both hands on the ground, perfectly okay. But the main thing is stabbing as far back as you can, using that same motion, lifting up your head, and then also pulling those legs in. But we'll get to the legs in a second. First will be just pulling that head up. Again, go from chair, and then use that range of motion to pick up your head off the ground. So from chair, air chair. Those of you guys just tuned in, I saw we got a couple more people jumping in or jumping back in. We're doing chair freeze. We're taking our head, dipping it back down, and then from here, lifting our head back up. You can do this with two hands. So from chair, lift up, back down, lift up. The main thing is you want to have your stab in the back, as far back as you can. So not in front of you, not next to you or sideways, all the way in the back. So that's going to be a crucial drill. I would say probably one of the most important ones for air chair, because whatever position you're going to be in, like let's say you're doing like one arm stall or one hand to air chair, you're going to be doing that same pulling motion with your head. If you're going to go elbow to air chair, you're going to pull in with that head. So yeah, same thing. If you want to do, I guess chair to air chair would be the most basic, but that pulling up motion is going to be what's the differentiating factor between really a side chair and an air chair. Side chair, you're just going to kind of hold it, bring your legs to you. In the side chair. And then air chair, you're really going to fold everything together. So your head is going to come up a little bit as your legs come in. So for the legs, before I would kind of differentiate an air chair with your hips closed in like this, like a pike Nike, and then side chair is when your hip is open. But to be honest, it doesn't really matter. It's synonymous. So if I air chair with my leg flat, it's a little bit more difficult to me, honestly, than bringing that leg in. So what I like to do, just like squat, pull both my legs in, keep everything tight. Just like side chair, pull that leg in as much as you can. And you're going to be pulling from your knees, so everything is going to be like folding in. So you can do it crunch legs if you want. Really doesn't matter as long as you're pulling everything as far in as you can. Whew. It's going to be really similar to side chair. The only difference is everything is folding in. So the reason I say that, or I was saying before, I don't really care now, that side chair is more like this, and air chair is when your hips are folded in like this, is because for air chair, since everything is folding in, it kind of requires you to bring this leg in as opposed to keeping it out. Because if you just pull this in, you can still do an air chair like this. It still kind of counts, but you're not getting that same type of folding effect as you would keeping that leg out. So it's a little bit like a side chair, but I don't really care about the naming convention. And then, so now let's move on to the next step in the air chair. So once you have the chair lift up and down, so here, lift up and down, what you want to do is take one leg, that opposite leg, and try to hold it up. Your other leg can be on the ground, so you're going to be in like a chair freeze. Put that front leg on the ground, and try to lift up the other leg. You're going to have your leg bent, straight. I like to have it straight. Pick up your head, and just try holding this. Once you're comfortable with two hands, try shifting your weight, doing the finger technique, lift up slow, pull that arm back. As I pull this arm back, it's going to open out my chest even more so I can stab further in my back. So me pulling my arm out, it's going to open out my chest, so now my stab can reach further back. And I can maybe hold it a little bit longer. And it's also going to allow my legs to really come in. So go ahead. Those of you that got the up and downs, even if you didn't get the up and downs, go ahead and try doing a chair freeze. Put that front leg, same leg as your stabbing arm, on the ground. Lift up the opposite leg. Well, it can be bent, straight, doesn't really matter. Lift up your head and just try holding this. And if you want, just try holding it with your knee on the ground. So instead of lifting your head up, keep your knees on the ground like this, go into the stab, lift up one of the legs, really open out that chest, pull that arm back. You can rest on your knee like this. Once you're more comfortable, put it onto your foot. So try that. Let me know. Woo! Yes, this is extremely hard. Maybe you should throw this in. Instead of doing a stab, leaving it up to like whatever stab you want to do in my stream, I can just be like, all right, let's work on this chair freeze, or chair freeze with our head lifted off the ground or something like that. So, whew, a lot of new things, especially with air chair. There's like a lot of nuances and patterns that make it different from a side chair, but they're really good exercises. Woo. Yes, exactly, J-Rock. Hit the nail on the head. Start with the knee. It's going to be a progression, 3-step combo, 3-step progression. So you're on your knees, you lean over, kind of like starting a chair freeze, but instead of putting your head on the ground, pull your arm back, keep your head up, pull your leg in, just hold this. And then once you're used to this, try doing it with your foot on the ground, lean, pull the other leg in, holding it, really pull open that arm, and then you can try lifting off that foot. You can even do it from knee, lift up, or you can do it from foot, doesn't really matter, and just try lifting off and just tapping. So the difference with side chair and air chair is that with air chair, you want to have your chest open. So as far as practice methods go, like we did for side chair, we had our fingertips, let go one at a time and slowly lift off in side chair. With air chair, the way we want to practice it as far as like actually getting into air chair is by starting with our chest already open and pulling with our arm. It's kind of like you're taking a bar and pulling it or something like that. And you're pulling it away. So I'm going to start, instead of with my chest closed like this, the objective of air chair is to have your chest open so you can stab further back. So I'm going to start as far back as I can, like this. Pull that leg in, and then I can either tap from my knee or my foot, but just keep this leg tight, open out that chest, and just tap. Same thing with my foot. I'm here, just tap. Bring it in. And that's how I practice holding it. And then, just like we do in the freezes in my stream, just tap, tap, tap. Do that for the whole minute, right? So like I'm like, oh, in handstand, start off in a plank, walk up, tap, 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 until you get comfortable with it. Then tap, hold, tap, hold. So just like my stream, you're gonna do the exact same thing with air chair. Tap, tap, tap until you're comfortable, then tap, hold, until you can just hold it, if that makes sense. So it is exactly a 3-step progression, but you can do it you can try air chair from any one of those points. So again, my wrist is feeling it. I'm here. Pull this leg in, pull this arm. So pull this arm back, pull this leg towards me. Tap, hold, tap, hold, tap, hold, tap, hold, until you can just hold it. But the main thing is, just like we did the crunched handstand like this, where both knees have to be close to your chest, you want to try to emulate that in your air chair. So whether your legs are straight or bent, knees to chest, knees to chest. So air chair, I would say strive to make it more like a pike than anything. And also, just a quick note, for this workshop and pretty much every workshop I've done and every workshop I will do for this stream, I'm going to be teaching a progression of things all the way up until like the final move or the hardest move or whatever. Find where you're at in that spectrum and you can pick it up from there. So if you already had Handglide, if you already had baby freeze, if you already had chair freeze, but you didn't have side chair, you can pick it up from there. Ooh, wait, do you train non-stab arm by reaching back slowly? Yes. Perfect. Good question. So you're here. Let's say I'm going to start in chair freeze or something like that, or like a chair stab. So I'm going to be stabbing in my back like this. And with this arm right here, my free arm, I'm going to pull it back slowly. So if you're comfortable like this, maybe my arm is a little bit in front and holding this air chair. But I want to open out that arm even more, to open out my chest, then slowly pull it out. The reason why you want to, so even if you're stabbing on your back as far back as you can, the reason why you want to pull this arm out as much as you can is so that you have room to pull this leg as far in as you can, and maybe your other leg as well. So, because if you have it closed like this, it's going to be blocking that leg from really getting in as far as you can. So that's the reason why, even though you're already stabbed all the way in the back, you still want to pull out as much as you can with this arm. So if you watch b-boys like Luca or Lilu, you'll see when they do their air chair, it's really deep, but they're really just doing kind of like a V kick. It's kind of like this. So it's not really so much from the side. it's really, they're just folding it in. And the reason why they get to fold it in like this, and it looks like a V kick, is because they're pulling this arm out. And they can just pull their legs in from the front instead of from the side. Does that make sense? So, yes, the unstabbed arm or the free arm is super important. All right, I think that's it for Airchair. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. With the next one, it's going to be Hong 10 freeze. So I just included this in here because it's going to help out with transitioning between freezes and power. So I don't usually do Hong 10 freeze by itself, but I think when if I were to teach halos or anything like that, I find it super useful. So not something I like to do all the time as a freeze by itself, but really applicable for other things. So I'm putting this in here, Hong 10 freeze. Hey, we got F's in the chat. Wanted Chips, Perplex Ninja, Zoe, J-Rock, drop F's in the chat. Love to see it. So we learned Airchair, and that is pretty much the hardest stab. So Hong 10, we're gonna take it down a notch. We're still gonna be stabbing in the back. You can stab on the side if you like, but it's a lot easier in the back. What you're gonna do, hey, Trouble Lock, got an F in the chat. So what you're gonna do with Hong 10 freeze, exact same startup as Airchair. You can start it in chair freeze, you can start it in baby freeze, your stab freeze, whatever you wanna do. But the main thing is, you wanna have your arms in a line like this. So if I drew a line from here all the way out, I wanna have my hands on these lines right here. So if I'm in baby freeze, for example, let's say that's how I wanna start, I wanna have my stab arm be all the way in my back like an Airchair. And this arm, the one that's closest to you guys, all the way out like this. So now my arms, if I pick up, they're in a line. So yeah, I don't really know a better way to explain it, but just imagine like a straight line of tape. My arms need to be straight across, not in front, not diagonal, but straight, open like this. Whew. All right, so like I said, you can start this from baby freeze, chair freeze. Doesn't really matter as long as you get into the Hong 10 freeze. Then once you master the freeze, then you can start really trying to find different ways into it. Yes, also keep your head down. You can keep your head down for Hong 10, no worries. I really don't see the purpose in lifting your head up in the Hong 10 freeze, but essentially Hong 10 freeze, I should have just said this in the beginning, Hong 10 freeze is just an Airchair, but instead of having your arm out, your arm is just above you, but your chest is still open, still facing upwards, your stab is still in the back. So exact same thing as Airchair, but you're just having your arm right on top of you. All right, so if I'm Airchair, I'll do Airchair hold. Hey, the focus got back. So I'll do Airchair hold, exact same thing, leave my head on the ground, put my arm out like this. And then that's a Hong 10 freeze. All right, there we go. So, like I said, do an Airchair, however you want to get into it. You can even do a baby freeze, or you can do a side chair. Doesn't really matter. If you can hold a side chair, keep your head on the ground. So if I'm in baby freeze, and I just open out like this, as I move my hand to get in line, really to get in line requires you to open out that chest and move that stab all the way to the back. But your legs are going to do the exact same thing as they did in Airchair. You really want to fold in those legs as much as you can, whether it's crunched in, whether it's Nike'd, pike Nike'd, doesn't really matter. And then you can play around with different leg positions from there. So Hong 10 freeze, I highly recommend. Just keep your head down. It's going to be in that same line. It's going to be stab arm, head, and then your free arm. So stab arm, head, free arm. And so for example, this would be a chair freeze, and I would say this is probably one of the hardest ways to get into it, but just kicking up from here into a Hong 10 freeze. And you want to do the exact same thing. A lot of people will do their Hong 10 freeze with the back of their head on the ground, or like their head turned or whatever, I would say keep your head just like a baby freeze on the side, as if you're wearing like a headband or a hat, that the edge of the hat or wherever your headband lies on your head. But you're going to rotate your head out a little bit more as you open out that chest. So if your baby freeze is here, as you open out that chest, you're going to shift it a little bit towards the back, but still in that crown area. So a lot of people will do their Hong 10 like this. They'll curl their neck in or whatever. But no, just keep it straight. Unless you really want to curl that neck in. But I really don't see the point. And I'll show you why in a second. So go ahead, give it a shot. We have a lot of time. So go ahead, try doing a Hong 10 freeze. Try it from chair. Try it from baby freeze. If you can air chair already, try reaching over and making that line between your stab arm, your head, and your free hand. If you want to do side chair, you're more than welcome to do that as well. Let me know how it works out for you guys. And then after the Hong 10, we will get into its applications and I guess the reason why I taught all the freezes like this. So with the Hong 10 freeze, the reason why I say keep your head on the ground and also keep it on the crown of your head instead of like the back of your head is because the reason why I like to do Hong 10s at all is because when I teach it, I use it to teach halos. So I'll do like a quick demo, but I won't be teaching the application for it. But basically from here, if I'm trying to do from stab to halo, I go from stab, twist out, Hong 10, shift over, catch back to halo. So that's pretty much a slow motion halo. So if you want like slow motion halos, that's kind of how I teach it. And not just slow motion halos, but just like the drill of going up, picking up from stab to head, and all that stuff like that. So this is kind of like a prerequisite. You don't need it. I've seen people do like halos without learning Hong 10 freeze, or they don't have the flexibility to open out their shoulder. But I would say if you learn it, it's going to be a lot easier to learn halos. So I'll show you guys again. And this is really legit the only reason why I would ever recommend doing a Hong 10 freeze, because I don't really care. I don't want to do another guy's move, especially when the move is named after the guy. But it's really applicable for a lot of things. So you're here in your stab freeze and you want a halo. So you kick over, you open out those hips into an air chair like motion, reach out into a Hong 10, push up, turn, and then re-stab. And that's pretty much a halo, slow motion. So yeah, and also if you just want to learn halos in slow motion, really helps to have a Hong 10 freeze. Yeah, that move has a ton of applications. I'll use it like if I want to halo and pick up, I'll do that. And it also helps with a lot of other things. So not only does it help with flexibility, it just has a lot of benefits and application to it. So yeah, that's pretty much Hong 10 freeze. It's just air chair, but reaching over. And yeah, if you learn it, it'll help you out in the long run, in my opinion. But I don't recommend using it. I don't use it, just personal preference. But if you like doing it, go ahead and do it. So let's go to transitions with stabs. So this can be from side chair, air chair, one hand, two hand, doesn't matter. All these principles are all going to be the same. So the first thing is with transitions, you can either do it like we talked about before with your legs crunched, like in handstand, or in pike Nike, or actually that's it. When you're in open Nike, this is more for like sticking it. And you can also stick it like this or like this, doesn't really matter. But as far as transitions go, this will be your main pump. And then like here, this will be your main pump. All right. So let's try doing an open baby freeze or like a side chair with your head on the ground and have your legs Nike'd. And notice that my leg that's bent is kind of tucked in towards my chest. My heel or my foot is parallel with the ceiling, and I'm gonna pump up. And if I just pump straight up, notice my body's still at an angle. So my body is still at this diagonal angle. And I wish this camera would get in focus. How many times will it get out of focus? Please. Oh my gosh. All right, so let's see if standing up helps. It does. Maybe I'll just do that next time. So notice, even though my legs are in perfect position to pump, and I pump straight up with my leg, my body's still at that angle. So the reason why I say you have that leg straight, even if you have it bent, doesn't matter. The reason why I say having this leg in is so important is because this is your, actually like your sole pumping leg. So everything that you're gonna do, like when we do stacks, we pump with both legs, no problem. But with stab, it's a little bit different because what you're gonna be doing to mitigate your body at that angle, so my body's at this angle and I just pump up, it's not gonna do anything. So I have to use this leg right here, the straight leg, bent leg, it doesn't matter. That leg that's opposite to the arm you're stabbing with, to pull my body at another angle. So I'm gonna do a stab to handstand without a pump, just by pulling this leg over. I'll show you what I mean. So here, just pulling over. Little to no pump. So here, I'm using it, my body's at an angle like this, I'm using that leg to pull me over. I'm squeezing that leg towards my shoulder, or my knee to my ear, whatever, to pick my body up. Once my body is at a certain angle, I use that other leg to pump. So I'm here, I pick up, and I pump. So it's kind of how the whole technique goes. So it's a mix of leaning with the outside leg and then pumping to finish it, if that makes sense. And you can also do this with your legs crunch. So if your legs are crunch, use this leg to pull your hips over you to get that angle and then pump up. So it's kind of like two things going on at once. Lean and pump. And that's how you get into handstand. You can do stab to handstand, stab to elbow. Doesn't really matter. The principle is the same. Let's see. Those are really the mechanics for transitions. And you can do this for one hand too. So using this leg to pull you up, to angle your body, vertical, using the other leg to pump. So if I want to do air chair up with one hand, it's the exact same thing. Here, pick up. I use this leg to pull me over, this one to pump. So air chair up. Same thing with air chair to elbow. I don't know if I can do it, but reaching over and pumping up with that leg. Air chair up, right? Same thing. You can do it with one hand, doesn't really matter. The technique, pulling and pump. Same thing. Pulling and pump. So the legs, the principle remains for all transitions if you're doing stacks. Any questions? Is this making sense for you guys? I know this at this point it might be like at a way higher level than a lot of you may be at, but you can always refer back to these notes, refer back to this video once I clip it, and then like once you get to this point, hopefully this starts making more sense, not just with understanding, but also like, you know, your body motions too. So when I'm doing one arm transitions, I'm using this arm, my free arm, just like my leg. I'm using it to pull me over. So if you notice, I do one hand up, I'll use my leg to pull me up to get that angle, but I'll also use my arm. So when I finish, my arm is like this. Same thing with elbow. I push up, my arm will reach my body over. So my arm that's free, if I'm doing one hand, will pull over and help me with my leg. So with like going up, I'll show you. Just if you watch my arm, it'll jolt over like this along with my leg that's gonna jolt over. So here, oh, same thing. Same thing with elbow. So stab to elbow, my free arm's gonna shoot. My leg is gonna do the same thing while this one pumps up. So air chair to elbow. So the free one is gonna help me shoot over. But that Airchair to elbow is terrible. I haven't practiced that in a long time. But regardless, principle for the legs is the same. Whether you're doing one hand, two hand, the legs motion is exactly the same. Last thing is going to be the importance of these freezes, because they're going to be your foundation for learning power. So these freezes by themselves are great. If you stick them, it's amazing. If you use them transitions, it makes everything look way more dynamic. But it's also the foundation for your power moves as well. And each one of these freezes, whether it's front stab or your hang glide, your baby freeze or side chair or air chair, chair, hong ten, whatever, it's going to be the foundation for almost every ground power move. So let's take, for example, hang glide. And I'm not going to be teaching like these power moves, I'm just kind of demonstrating. But you're going to be taking that hang glide. You can do it with two hands too. This is the foundation for your windmill, right? Same thing, hang glide, even to stab your side chair or your air chair. That's going to be your foundation for halo, which I don't know if I can do without hitting anything. I almost hit the wall, but yeah, you get the idea. So halo would be maybe hang glide, side chair to air chair to a hung ten freeze. All those things feed into a halo. Same thing, hang glide or air chair, you could be doing chair flare. So hang glide, for example, I would be rotating all the way out to air chair, pumping up to chair flare. So I'm here, right? Hang glide, air chair, and pump. All right, I don't have enough space to do anything here, but so these stabs are not only important just for freezes, holding freezes, sticking them, using them as transitions, but also when you're trying to learn power. Super crucial that you learn these, because you can do these power moves like without learning the freezes, without being good at the freezes, but when you learn these stab freezes and really take time to sit in all the angles, it really takes your power to the next level. And I think that's going to be like, this is like a little bit forward thinking. So as far as like practicing your freezes, you want to be able to just do them as the freeze, but then you want to be able to get them so it helps you in the long run if you're trying to learn power. And even if you're trying to learn like footwork or whatever, like these will help you out. Maybe you'll make a step that involves a stab. Maybe you'll make a step that involves an air chair. Doesn't really matter. And same thing with power. You can make power like icy ice. That's an air chair. Spin around in an air chair or like a side chair. It doesn't really matter. But the point is, if you learn these, it creates like a huge foundation for you to take whatever you want to the next level. So yeah, that's about it for the workshop. Is there any other questions? Let's see, anything else? Oh man, I forgot to take this thing down, this whole sign. Oh, well, whatever. Let's see. So guys, if you have any more questions, you can always drop it in the chat whenever we stream. Hit me up on Instagram for any questions you may have. Send me a DM, send me your footage if you want any tips or advice on your whatever you're working on. Tag me in your posts, your stories. Love to see the progress. Like I said, doesn't have to be freezes. It doesn't have to be stretches. It can be power, footwork, top rocks, rounds. It doesn't matter. Twitch. Follow me on Twitch. Click the heart button. Subscribe. Helps me out a lot. And also, if you want to support me even more, take this link. Share it with people you know that are stuck at home in quarantine. We stream from Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. every day. And every Wednesday at 7 p.m., same time as a normal stream, I'll be doing a workshop, just like we did today. So if you like this, feel free to share with people. And if there are no more questions, I will see you guys later. See you guys tomorrow, 7 p.m. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this workshop. I hope you guys took something out of it. So I will see you tomorrow. Peace.